This is breaking news from Channel 13 Eyewitness News.
Good evening. Welcome to continuing coverage of breaking news here on Eyewitness News. The collapse of the rigging above the stage at the Indiana State Fairgrounds during the Sugarland concert. This happened at 8:50 this evening approximately during high winds. There was a high wind gust that came in through the area that blew the stage forward into the VIP section where hundreds of people were waiting for Sugarland to take the stage. We know of, at this point, of 3 confirmed fatalities as a result of this and 24 people who have been transported to area hospitals with all kinds of injuries, with lacerations, with breaks, head injuries, at least 2 severe head injuries that we've been told about. This has been declared a level 1 emergency by the Indianapolis Department of Homeland Security, and numerous first responders converged on the area. You're taking a look. This is new video that really shows what witnesses have been describing to us all evening. This is before rain came through this area. This was just wind, high winds that came through, and you saw there how those winds just started whipping up the tarp that covered the rigging above the stage and how it just folded down. And you can see the women's hair there blowing, just how strong that wind was. And perhaps we can take a look at that again, because that was probably the clearest video we've seen so far. You can see the wind starting to pick up. There goes the tarp on the top, and then it just folds down. And you can see right down into that VIP section where many of those people were waiting for Sugarland to take the stage. Eyewitness News reporter Richard Essex joins us live from the State Fairgrounds. Richard.
Well, just a few minutes ago, the mayor and other officials out here just got done with their press conference. And as we were standing out here, the video that you just saw was shot by a lady from Illinois. And she was talking to our own Rich Van Wyck about what she saw. Rich, I'm going to give this microphone over to you.
Thanks. First of all, Richard, the most important thing we heard here is that state police, who happened to be here at the time, say they were watching this storm coming in on a smartphone. They saw the severe weather coming. They said a decision was made along with the State Fair director, Cindy Hoy, that they needed to start moving people out. They put a warning out to people, and we're just getting in the process of getting them out of the grandstands into some of the buildings across the street when the storm hit. Jessica Silas, we were looking at some pictures that you shot. You were in the grandstands when this was all going on, and we're going to see those pictures again. What was happening as you were sitting there taking these pictures?
Well, someone came on the stage and said that there was severe weather coming and they were going to try and continue the show, but if the weather got really bad, they were going to take us all into the Coliseum and then try to resume it afterwards. But 5 minutes after that is when the winds started really picking up, and that's when I started videotaping, and then 10 seconds later is when the stage actually fell down.
Did you hear a warning? Did you hear advice saying you need to start moving, folks?
No, nothing. It was just the guy that came on the stage and said they were going to continue the show and see how it went, and then that was it.
You're watching this happen in your viewfinder, and what are you saying to yourself?
It's like something out of a movie, something you don't actually expect to happen in real life while you're standing there watching. It was insane.
And at what point did you say, I need to get out of here?
When my parents started yelling at me, they grabbed me and pulled me. I don't know, it was insane.
You seem as if you haven't really appreciated the magnitude of what occurred here this evening.
I guess not. We were sitting in the Coliseum for a while, so none of us have really heard what happened. We just saw it fall, and then we all got ushered in there. So
Jessica, you were lucky. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that went on this evening is the fact that we had a lot of people here very, very quickly. The mayor talked about emergency procedures, emergency personnel getting here in a very, very big hurry. Chuck, you were here at the time. You were at the triage area.
Yeah, I was here at the triage area after it happened, Rich. I was on my way during this to the State Fair and was on the air with folks from Channel 13. I think a lot of people are going to ask and wonder what in the world happened here tonight from a weather standpoint. Many of you were watching Chicago since early this evening with the scattered thunderstorms. I just got off the phone with the National Weather Service, and Jason, the meteorologist on duty, said basically, here's what happened. There was a line of thunderstorms that moved through. When the thunderstorms occurred, There wasn't much rain. In fact, I can recall at my house when it hit in Hendricks County, there wasn't much rain, but it was the wind ahead of it. That's called a gust front. The Weather Service had a report about 8:34, 8:35, from what I understand, that there was a 77-mile-per-hour wind in Plainfield before it even rained. Then, when the rain moved in, the winds died out. So what that is called is a gust front. Basically, you have this burst of air ahead of the thunderstorms, then the thunderstorms roll in. And apparently, Rich, that's what happened here, because we heard so many witnesses say there wasn't any rain falling. We thought it was rain at first, but it was dust. That was the dust that was being picked up. We also had a report of a 50-mile-per-hour wind in Indianapolis International. Now, the severe thunderstorm warning was issued at 8:39 for Marion County. The announcement was made here at 8:45 or somewhere thereabouts, and then right after it's when it hit.
And Chuck, the one thing that we noticed here is that this is very, very localized. There is no other damage to the State Fair. If you look around here, you wouldn't realize that this occurred. In speaking with the emergency personnel here this evening, they extended their condolences and sympathies to the people. Again, at this point, 24 people injured. They believe they have all the folks that were injured out of the triage area and on their way to medical facilities. And the word was at least 3 fatalities and possibly more, which tells me that some of these injuries are very severe. The other thing that occurred too, as this steel came crashing down among people, the people there, the spectators, began picking up the steel themselves and getting the injured people out that were trapped beneath it.
And what's going on, to give you some idea of where Rich and Richard and I are, we are on the other side of the grandstand, near the deaf school. And what's going on right now is that Indianapolis Fire Department officials are putting airbags underneath the scaffolding, and they are blowing those airbags up and tunneling in under there to perhaps find out if anybody's there. Now, they don't believe anybody else is there. But when I was at the triage unit, when I got there, there were still about a dozen people remaining. By the time I left, there were about 2 people. Some of them were in very bad shape, and then others were in a position where they were okay but needed to be taken in for...
Richard, you were the last one back out of there. You came back from over there. What was the state of things when you left?
Well, I got out here at about 8:45, right as that storm was starting to come through. And as I got in behind the communications building back there, there was all of a sudden this rush of people coming in. We got here actually before the fire department and all of the other emergency people got here. And the first couple of people that came out were on some of those smaller golf cart type EMS vehicles, and yes, some of those people were in really bad shape. And when we first got here, we saw 4 or 5 people going out right away. We heard that at that point that there were up to 30 people that were still trapped inside. We were able to get real close to the stage, and you could see the pictures show you one thing, but when you get up next to it, it's an enormous steel structure that came crashing down, and it's a big pile of twisted metal at this point.
I asked the state police captain, who was here at the time, off duty. When he looked at his smartphone, they consulted with Cindy Hoy, the director of the State Fair, what they should do. They said to begin an evacuation. And I asked him point blank, was there anything else he thought they could have done to get people moving from this area to safety sooner? And he said no. I think the things that we're hearing about is the immense power of this storm that came through. Secondly, how localized it was. And thirdly, from witnesses who I spoke with earlier, how fast this was upon people. They heard there was some severe weather, but it was like that right on top of it.
And that's exactly what I experienced when I got out here. Getting out of my car, this enormous gust of wind, literally gravel into my eyes. The car was moving. You could see other vehicles inside of the infield starting to move around. And at that point, people started making a very quick beeline out of the infield area, and the state fair people were starting to rush in to find out what was going on.
I think the question is now we're going to be watching exactly how severe these injuries are. Are there any more casualties? On the odd chance that there might still be someone underneath the wreckage that's out there, the question then becomes the investigation that goes on as to what happened. And then, aside from all this, is what's going to happen at the Indiana State Fair tomorrow. And
there is, for people, and I know that Richard and Rich, that there are people who have been trying to get a hold of loved ones and they can't get a hold of them. I got to tell you, it is really tough to get a cell call in or out of the Indiana State Fair. We have so many agencies using cell phones. So if you have a loved one that perhaps you think is injured or know is injured and you can't get a hold of anybody, here's what to do. Go to redcross.org, redcross.org. When you get to the page, there will be a button that says Safe and Well. And all of these agencies have coordinated with the Red Cross so that when your loved one, you'll know where they're at, if they've been accounted for, and you'll know that by that website. Probably won't do you any good at this point anyway to call a hospital or to call the emergency medical, to call an emergency agency like the police department. But here you can get the information. They're putting it on the site as soon as they get it.
I think at this point now, we just need to find out the status of those individuals, where they are, how critical these injuries are, and then what happens next. As we learn more, we will tell you about it. We hope to have some additional information from the mayor and some of the other emergency personnel here. They said there might be another briefing prior to midnight. When that happens, we will bring it to you. We will fill you in with the latest information that we have at that time.
All right, Rich, let me ask you a question. Maybe one of you can clarify. We're getting some conflicting information into the newsroom and have been since this really began. On one hand, some witnesses are saying there was an evacuation in progress. On the other hand, several witnesses have said absolutely not. There was no evacuation going on. They just came over the loudspeakers and said that there is the possibility of weather coming in, and if so, this is what you should do. So do you have any idea, or does anyone have any idea, which is true? Was there an evacuation going on or was there not?
At this point, the state police say, as I remember the description of what happened, and we're talking a minute-by-minute account here, they had warned people and told them where they needed to go if there was an evacuation. They were in the process, as I remember the captain's description, of putting people in place to begin this evacuation. Now, had the announcement been made yet that you need to leave? I am not certain about that. It appeared as if yes, but again, speaking with one of the witnesses here, the answer was no. But the decision, according to state police, had been made to evacuate, and that they were putting people in place to start moving people out into the shelter, the safety areas near the building. Again, the Pepsi Coliseum, the other heavy-duty structures that are out here, much safer than grandstands. So at this point, were people moving when this had started? From the pictures we saw earlier, the answer is no, but that's a very big grandstand, and we don't know if people were moving out of the other end yet. But again, the decision, as we are told, had been made to begin evacuating people. Whether they had started taking those first steps yet, that's a point for debate at this time.
All right, thanks very much. Rich Van Wyk with Richard Essex and Chuck Lofton all out at the Indiana State Fairgrounds, and they all talked about the current conditions of those victims. We know of 24 people who were transported to the hospital, 9 of whom taken to Wishart Hospital, and Eyewitness News anchor Scott Swan is live at Wishart Hospital, which is one of the level 1 trauma centers. Scott, what can you tell us about some of the victims that have been taken to the hospital there?
Yeah, Jeremy, Wishart spokesperson Todd Harper came out just a few moments ago and informed us that they have 17 patients being treated here in the emergency room of Wishart Hospital. They range in age from the very young to adults. The 17 patients that are here at Wishart all are suffering from what's described as non-life-threatening injuries. We've heard the injuries described as fractures, nothing beyond that. Wishart has essentially called in all of its staff to handle the 17 patients that have brought in here, and we've been shooting some video. Photographer Bill Ditton has been on the scene all evening since this horrible accident occurred at the Indiana State Fair, and had video of at least 6 ambulances coming over to Wishart Hospital, and the wounded being brought on gurneys into the emergency room. And again, Wishart reporting that they have 17 patients here in the emergency room, ranging in age from the very young to adults, with a variety of fractures. Non-life-threatening injuries, though, for the various patients being treated here at Wishart Hospital, and we expect to have more information coming in a little bit. Jeremy?
Scott Swan live at Wishart, and of course we want to remind everyone 3 people lost their lives this evening in this tragic accident at the Indiana State Fairgrounds when that rigging came collapsing down after a gust of wind came through. So we know 17 patients are at Wishart, and we know other patients were taken to Methodist Hospital. We have also gotten some reports of some patients walking into Community East Hospital on their own volition. Kevin Rader is live at Methodist Hospital, and he can tell us more about perhaps the number of patients that were brought there and more on those injuries. And I know, Kevin, you've spoken with some of the relatives and friends of some of those who have been injured.
That's right, Jeremy. So far, we had not have word from Methodist Hospital. Nobody's come out to talk to us, but we have talked to witnesses, people who were there, who have family here now at Methodist that have been running on their way into this hospital. And something I think we need to point out is that we're told that within like 7 minutes, there were about 12 ambulances on the scene. That is how quick hospitals and emergency personnel were responding. Here, in the last several hours, you've seen cars pull up and people get out and sprinting in. Some clearly medical personnel, doctors and nurses, the others family, our friends. We spoke to David Riley. You heard a little bit from him earlier. He was sitting in one of the VIP front rows in the section that was affected. We talked to him. He said, yes, there was an evacuation warning, but he said it was just too little, too late.
I understand they did give an evacuation order, but right after the evacuation is
I mean, it was 2 minutes. I mean, they asked they said that they were going to try it. The guy from the radio station came out and said, we have weather coming in. We're going to do the best we can. If something happens, go across the street. They gave it, I mean, they did what they could, but I'm telling you that storm came 5 minutes from the time I saw the first cloud to the time the stage went down. It was that quick.
Was anybody actually playing at the time?
No. They had not come out yet. They were preparing to come out, and all of a sudden you see the rigging guys and stuff start battening down the hatches, and it came so fast, too little too late.
David went on to say that he, of course, began at that point to try to pull some people out, and he said it was just a very, very gruesome and ugly scene. Reporting live from Methodist, Kevin Rader, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
All right, thanks very much, Kevin. And we also want to some new information coming in from Sugarland, from the country music group that was about to perform there. They have tweeted a message to their fans. It says, "We are all right. We are praying for our fans and the people of Indianapolis. We hope you'll join us. They need your strength." This is a tweet that just came out by Sugarland, by the group that was about to perform. As you heard, they had not taken the stage yet, but they are praying for the fans and the people of Indianapolis. So they want everyone to join in with them. We also want to go this evening to another witness who actually saw some of the crew that was up in that rigging. That rigging, that structure that is above the stage, is where many of the lights are, and sometimes there are crew members who are actually up in the rigging during the concert, moving around lights and other fixtures. And Jennifer Neely was at the concert. She says she saw some of those people in there. Jennifer, you saw 4 different people up in the rigging?
Yes, there were 4 people up in the rigging, 1 on the left, 2 in the middle, and 1 on the right. They were working on the light system, making sure all the lights and stuff worked okay. And we were right there in row 17 in the very front. And when the guy came out and said that they were going to go ahead and continue with the concert, and if the weather got bad, then they were going to go ahead and evacuate everybody to the Pepsi Coliseum and all the other places. But that they were going to go ahead and try to go ahead and go on with the concert, and then if the weather got bad, they were going to go ahead and evacuate everybody. So my mother and I, we decided to walk out and go ahead and head out because we saw the storm coming through. And as we took 2 steps from our seats, I heard a creak, and I looked back, and the whole stage started falling down. And we were only a couple feet from the very far right corner that it fell. And I turned around and started yelling at everybody. There's people stuck underneath there because I saw a woman. It came down on I saw it come down on her. And I turned around and started yelling, "We need to help these people. We need to help these people." And we came in, and a bunch of guys came together, and they just said, 1, 2, 3, let's lift. And they all lifted it up, and we were pulling. 3 to 4 people out at a time and trying to make sure they were okay. And there was one gentleman we started CPR on, and it was very traumatic.
So, Jennifer, let me just clarify, because this is something we've heard a couple of stories about. From what you're saying, there was no evacuation in progress yet.
No, not yet. They said they were going to go ahead, come out on stage, and then if the weather got bad, then we'll go ahead and evacuate people to the Pepsi Coliseum, to the other exhibition halls, and then we'll go ahead, have people wait there and then see if the weather blows over, and then we'll come back and continue the concert.
And it sounds like, from what you're saying, that was very calm and kind of nonchalant. There was no sense of urgency.
No sense of urgency whatsoever. I mean, when the stage fell, I was only a few feet away from it, and there was no such emergency, nothing when it fell.
And after they made that announcement, how long after that did the rigging fall?
Maybe only a few minutes, honestly, a few minutes.
And so no one had a chance to move away, get away from there,
really.
or nothing?
Pretty much when the gentleman came out on the stage and said, we're going to go ahead and continue with the concert, and if the weather gets bad, we'll see how it goes. If it gets bad, then we'll evacuate people to the Coliseum, to the different exhibition halls, and then we'll try to see if the weather blows over, and then we'll continue on with the concert. So, a lot of people didn't really have a choice. They had a choice on whether or not they wanted to stay or whether they wanted to go. But honestly, we felt, well, if it was an option. They really didn't say weather's getting bad, let's evacuate. There was no evacuation plan in process when the stage fell.
And looking around you at that time, were people leaving or were people just staying? It sounds like you decided to stay. Did other people stay?
The majority of people stayed. We had one woman who was sitting in our row because we were in row 17 right in the very front. There was one woman, she had a very small child under the age of 1. She was like, I can't risk him being out here in the rain. We're going to go ahead and go. But her family members stayed. Nobody was leaving because they said that they're going to go ahead and start the concert, and then if the weather got bad, then they were going to go ahead and evacuate people. So we decided, we were like, okay, well, we got umbrellas, we'll go ahead and stay. And next thing I know, the stage fell. And so my mother and my friends and family, that we were with, we decided, we turned around after the stage fell. We were like, we've got to get these people out because we're all,
So it sounds like if they had made an announcement to leave, you would have left, but because they left that as an option and there was no sense of urgency,
right,
you and other people decided to stay.
Well, yeah, if they would have said, hey, there's severe storm warnings in process, the weather's getting bad, there's lightning, a couple miles out, we're going to cancel the concert, then yeah, everybody, I'm sure, I know ourselves, everybody would have left. But they said they're going to go ahead and continue on and see what the weather does.
All right, Jennifer Neely, thank you very much. You were sitting right up there in the 17th row, which was right in front of the stage. Now we want to turn to Lindsay Lefford, who was sitting in the grandstand a little bit further away, a different perspective of this. Lindsay, did you have any forewarning? We just heard from Jennifer that she said no evacuation in place and no sense of urgency. Did you hear anything different from where you were sitting?
No, that was accurate. I think it was Rich Van Wyk earlier that had mentioned what he had, and it's consistent with what he said as well, that there was no, the gentleman came out on stage and gave the precaution, that if the weather does get bad, this is where you need to go. Now, people up in the Coliseum, or up in the grandstands started going. There were plenty of people that started going to the Coliseum.
All right. Lindsay, let me interrupt you real quick. The mayor of Indianapolis is speaking, Greg Ballard. Let's listen in.
Well together. The state police, the IMPD, fire department, EMT, everything has been very well coordinated to respond to this event this evening. So I arrived here about 9:30 and they were already well into their procedures, very, very orderly, very calm, but at the same time urgent. So I think the responders, the first responders, have done a terrific job here tonight, and they have the situation in hand, even though it still is a bit fluid. So I want to thank them publicly for what they've done already tonight and what they will continue to do throughout the evening. Okay.
This time I'll be introducing Captain Brad Weaver. Captain Weaver is with the Indiana State Police. He was here in a plainclothes capacity, and he was an eyewitness to the circumstances of what happened this evening. He will be able to give you an overview. We will have an opportunity for about maybe 3 to 4 questions. It's still a very fluid situation. Please understand we may not be able to answer the questions you have right now because we want to deal in factual, accurate, and correct information. At this time, I'll introduce Captain Brad Weaver.
Good evening. My name is Captain Brad Weaver. As First Sergeant Burston said, first and foremost, I'm going to reiterate what the mayor said, and I'd like to extend my personal condolences to the families of this terrible tragedy. And we hope they are comforted and that they heal quickly and that we can get back to normalcy as soon as possible.
All right, you were just listening into a news conference there with the mayor of Indianapolis as well as state police who were on the scene. And state police say that at 8:45 a warning was issued to the crowd, but as we're hearing from the several witnesses, several people who were there, at least they interpreted that warning as an option. You can leave if you want to, you can stay if you want to. There was no organized evacuation, according to numerous people that we've spoken with this evening. 10 minutes after that warning was issued is when state police say at 8:55 when this rigging collapsed. And of course, we know now that 3 people were killed as a result of this and at least 24 injured. Lindsay Lefford, we were speaking with you before we heard from the mayor. And again, this warning was issued, as we've heard from other people, an option. It wasn't, there was no order to leave the area. Is
You're
that
right.
correct?
There was no order. It wasn't as though it was issued as you can leave if you want, but you don't have to. I mean, it was simply, we know there's severe weather headed this way. Hopefully it blows over. If it doesn't, here's where you need to go. And up in the grandstands, people started evacuating, but there was no organized evacuation.
What did you do when that announcement was made? Did you leave or did you stay?
No, we stayed but literally from the moment he made the announcement, only probably 3 minutes from the time. So, a minute and 50 goes by and we start getting up because you can see, we thought it was rain moving across the fairgrounds, and it was not rain, it was dirt and dust and everything else. So we got up and started walking, and then the stage just collapsed, or the rigging and everything collapsed, and you could hear the entire crowd just gasp and total shock. And so we started walking down the steps, and so.
And what did you and the group that you were with, what did you do once that happened?
Once the rigging fell?
Yes.
Well, we were walking, we were exiting the grandstands.
And as we're looking at some video now of people leaving after that happened, they look like they're panicking a little bit, but it looks relatively orderly.
Yeah. I mean, it was from the moment you could see, I think the majority of people started leaving once you could see all of that wind and dust and everything moving across the fairgrounds. It was like, okay, everybody could tell it was coming, but it was shortly thereafter that the rigging fell, and at that point, everybody knew it was real and started kind of scattering. So.
And then you were able to make your way out of the fairgrounds fairly easily?
Yeah, we actually just went down the steps and stood. We didn't make our way out. We were just kind of waiting. I mean, from our view, I didn't realize it had fallen on anyone. I thought it just collapsed on the stage, but obviously we learned quickly that wasn't the case.
How did you find that out? Did you find that out while you were there?
Well, we kind of just figured that was the case when we heard all of the sirens and the state troopers, running toward the track and screams, and it was scary. It was awful.
All right, Lindsay Leffert, one of the people who was there at the Sugarland concert, who witnessed this from the grandstand, along with hundreds of other people who were there, who said there was really very little warning, just a mention of some severe weather coming that way and what to do in case it does come. She says within less than a couple of minutes after that is when the rigging of the stage came crushing down. It is 11:30. If you're expecting to see Saturday Night Live, bear with us. We're following breaking news from the Indiana State Fairgrounds. We will join Saturday Night Live in progress at midnight when we go off the air, but we want to continue updating you with more information because as the moments pass, we are getting more and more information about this tragedy that happened at the Indiana State Fairgrounds at about 8:50, 8:55 this evening when the rigging above the stage came tumbling down at the Sugarland concert. There was a wind gust, and 3 people have been killed as a result of that. 24 people at least have been injured.